It's interesting you use that example because that's never happened. I mean, neighbour. I mean, I can hypothesise a little bit here.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Showbiz Showdown with me, JJ Anisiobi. No long intro this week, let's get straight into it. Today's big question, is it time to give reboots the boot? I think absolutely not. They are vital for generations upon generations upon generations. But sat opposite me, making his debut in the Lion's Den, my good friend and TV editor of The Sun, Rod McPhee.
Good morning, how are you doing?
Oh, good morning. Thanks for putting a timestamp on it. No one knows when we record this show, Rod. That's your
sorry.
first mistake. No, I'm joking. Look, I don't see reboots as being direct copies. I see them as being modern interpretations. And that's why I think they're vital, because not everyone, Rod, I know this is going to be a shock to you, but not everyone is as old as you. Not everyone has lived as long as you have. I don't remember when the dinosaurs were around, okay? You do.
I see. So you're setting out your store very early here, aren't you? Yeah.
So I want to see these old things made modern, because I'm watching it for the first time. I didn't watch the original version. I'm watching this version. This is the only version I know of things.
Yeah, but look, when you've seen these shows the first time round...
Old people.
Yes, old people, experienced, knowledgeable people, JJ. Basically, we know what happens in them. We know that they start off good and then they gradually fade away and then eventually get cancelled. And all that happens is that people kind of forget why they got cancelled and the fact that they did get cancelled. And all of a sudden they're reintroduced shiny and new on another channel with some interesting tweaks, which I think we should talk about. And all that happens is that they think they're breathing new life into these formats. And
Often
they're not.
they are. Often they are.
Yeah, but sometimes they're just reviving dead bodies. And as we all know, that just does not work. You just end up with a corpse of a show. It's cold, it's lifeless, and it's pointless. And, I hear your argument. And on some very rare occasions, they do work. But 90% of the time, they're complete turkeys.
We're talking about it because this week we found out that this show is making a comeback later this year. So, Ant and Dec, Byker Grove. They're not just doing it for a bit of cash. I'm sure there's some profit involved, but they're doing it to highlight the talents they've got in the Northeast, which often is a region that's overlooked. So this is a phenomenal idea for the region. It's great for the TV work up there, and it's good for lots of kids who are going to watch this show who have no idea Ant and Dec were even in a show called Byker Grove.
All of that is great, but why not come up with a new idea? Why go back to an old idea? Which may or may not work. Why not harness all the talents and imagination and creativity of all those young people and come up with a new TV show?
I'll tell you why. I knew you were going to say that, and I'll tell you why. Because familiarity breeds business. People, the big executives at the top of these studios, what they see is, right, what worked in the past? Okay, let's reboot it and let's give it a little twist, a little tweak for a new audience. Advertisers will see that and be like, oh, we loved that show back in the day. We'll spend money on that. And we, as the viewers, what we like is the familiarity. We like watching the same things over and over again because it gives us a safe space, gives us control. That's why on airplanes, 95% of people re-watch films and TV shows they've already seen before because it makes them feel safe and secure. That's why we do reboots. And that's why so many reboots are successful, at least for the first few seasons.
You see, being as old and dinosaur-esque as I am, I know that the phrase is that familiarity breeds contempt, because the contempt that is felt by viewers, particularly like viewers like myself who've seen it all before, and not just people of my generation, but people that are younger and slightly older, they say, why are we paying lots and lots of money to have the same shows regurgitated? So yeah, the bosses at all these channels, they might think it's a great idea. And in some cases, like I say, it can be a good idea, but most of the time it isn't. Viewers don't respond well to getting given the same thing over and over again. Just look at what's happened with Sex and the City, the reboot in the form of And Just Like That.
Yeah.
You know, it's gone down like a cup of cold sick.
But on HBO streaming, it is the most streamed show they've ever had.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
It means it's popular with their viewers?
No, because what that might mean is that it just gets registered. So if you watch 5 minutes or 5 hours of that show, does that get registered as having been viewed? I actually don't have the definitive answer to that. But what I do know is that when it was on Channel 4, you could keep an eye on exactly when people were watching, how many people were watching, when they turned on, when they turned off. And basically, we had a greater idea of how popular something actually was.
Yeah. Well, Doctor Who.
Yeah.
1963, the first episode. And
I don't remember it before you start.
Well, I was going to say 42 years later with Christopher Eccleston, it relaunched. So that's older than you. It's the same age as you. I believe that the age gap. Either way, the point being, that's like 2 generations of people, right?
Yes.
Who would have no idea that. I mean, the only thing that stayed the same from Doctor Who is the Daleks. Everything else has evolved massively. The special effects are better.
Yeah.
The Doctors are more diverse.
Yeah.
The script writing is better. So that is a great example of a reboot that has paid dividends.
I agree to some degree. But what I would argue there is that Doctor Who is the exception. It's one of the very few exceptions. And Doctor Who was a huge international concept. It was something which the world knew about. So when it came back, the world responded. It's a little bit like with Star Wars. You know, the second wave of Star Wars movies and all the spin-offs and everything, they've done really, really well. But that's because Star Wars is exceptional and Doctor Who is exceptional.
Fresh Prince of BelAir first aired in 1990.
Yeah.
Did a reboot in 2022. That's 32 years later.
Yeah.
It wasn't a comedy. It wasn't slapstick at all. Much more serious, darker undertones. Perfect. It was very successful. They've got a second series commissioned.
Yeah, yeah.
So Doctor Who's not the exception. Let me give you the definitive here. Adam West as Batman, the camp Batman. I loved that TV series. I'm sure you did too. But Batman has been rebooted many times, and the Batman we see today is a much darker, grittier version. Yeah. Which I would say is more reflective of the times and better. It's better for this audience. I could not show a 15-year-old kid Adam West as Batman and think he's going to sit there and enjoy it and think, well, this is ridiculous. It's comedy. This isn't Batman. Yeah. So this is why you have to have the reboots to move with the times.
So just to be clear, you're comparing Star Wars and Doctor Who to Byker Grove, because that's just my point. Is that if you've got Batman, you know, Batman is its own huge entity. You know, it's been the TV show in the late 80s. It was the movie reboot by Tim Burton and then Christopher Nolan. Yeah, it's kept regenerating and reinventing itself over many, many decades. Byker Grove has not. Byker Grove came out, and then it was its own mini phenomenon, and then partly because quite a few people came from the show, it's kind of lingered in our minds. But I think there's an important thing here is that shows like Byker Grove weren't that good when they first came out. They were quite good, but the important thing with them is that they held a special place in the sort of hearts and minds of a generation. If you try and replicate that now among the current generation, this is a generation for whom they've got TikTok and all other forms of social media.
I'm sure that'll be in the show.
Their interests last seconds or minutes, and then it's one thing, and then it's the next thing a few seconds later. You introduce to them a show which is 20 to 30 years old and say, here you go, kids. Knock yourselves out. They're going to be like, what is this?
This is the point of the reboot, you see. So the new Byker Grove will be tailored to these younger, short attention spanning teenagers, 100%. It'll be about vaping. It'll be about boyfriend-girlfriend problems. And here's the other thing with storytelling. There's only so many ways you can tell the same themes and stories. Whether it's a rom-com or an action, good guy versus bad guy wins at the end. Yeah. You follow the journey there, right? With TV shows, they can only explore so many different themes. So essentially, we're just going to see, reboots continually. Byker Grove, how dare you say it wasn't that good? The intro, jumping off a trampoline and freezing mid-air, that was cinematic genius. Everyone was doing that up and down the country. But let me move on. The best example I gave you earlier was with Batman. But would you not say that EastEnders and Coronation Street, technically, although they've been continuously going, they are essentially continually rebooting. With EastEnders, every 2 years we see, there's a new family in the square. Yeah. It's the same setup every time. They're a bit dangerous. This and that happens. And there's a new nightclub owner. Who's bought the calf now? It just continually reboots itself, trying to modernize. That's a reboot. But people are still happy. That's okay to do that because it's there continually. But you're saying if we stopped EastEnders tomorrow, like we stopped Neighbours, it would be a bad idea to bring it back?
Well, it's interesting you use that example because that's never happened. I mean, neighbour. I mean, I can hypothesize a little bit here, but the fact that EastEnders and Coronation Street and Emmerdale have started and never stopped, that speaks volumes because they're really good. And every time that they maybe take a bit of a lull, they find a new way to bring themselves back.
They reboot themselves, one might say.
Well, no, because what happens with the other shows is that they fade away, people stop watching it, the critics say it's rubbish, and then they axe it so that the channel chiefs can save what face they have and put in another show which still gets advertising and ratings. The difference with the soap operas is that they do still get the audience, they do still attract advertising, so they don't need to be axed and therefore don't need to be rebooted. I mean, you can't say every new episode or storyline is a reboot on every TV show because that would mean that every single TV show was a reboot.
Essentially, yes. Essentially, that's what I'm saying. Okay, look, let me ask you this. I've got a few films and one TV show. I want to ask you if you'd be okay with us rebooting these because these are classics. Things that we love.
You do know I don't give permission for this.
I know, you
it's
do.
Just a,
you
it's just
TV
a
chiefs. Okay, first one, absolute classic, Wizard of Oz. Should we do a reboot of that?
Well, we did, didn't we? Because I mean, we've got Wicked, which was the stage show.
Okay, it's a stage show, but it's not on TV. It's not a film. So can we remake the Wizard of Oz?
Of course, I think there's
so it's okay to remake The Wizard of Oz.
I never said it wasn't okay to reboot things. I think my point is this. You have to be very careful what you reboot.
So Wizard of Oz would be okay?
I think so, yeah.
And the original was a good film, fine.
Yeah.
La La Land won many Oscars with Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone.
I would argue it's a little too soon.
Okay. But it was a great film, nonetheless. Scarface, classic gangster. You guys at home watching, I love Scarface. What'd you say about that one?
Scarface, if they did that as a TV show, it feels very much like something that would pop up on Prime Video or possibly on Netflix. No. That's not an insult. It just feels like something because obviously they've done that, haven't they? You know, they did it with Hannibal as a sort of a TV reboot from the Hannibal movies, and that was really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, I'm not against any reboots.
Well, let me tell you, Rod McPhee, Wizard of Oz was actually a reboot. There were 6 versions of that before that one. La La Land was a reboot of a French film called Le Parapluie de Cherbourg, and Scarface was a remake of the 1932 film Scarface.
Yeah.
Thus giving you proof that reboots work and we can have fantastic TV and cinema from reboots.
As I said, you can reboot something well, you can reboot something badly. The point is, be careful what you reboot.
You can make stuff brand new well and make stuff brand new badly, but that's not going to stop us from making new shows.
True, but there's been some absolute turkeys. You know, I mean, like they brought back Dynasty a few years ago, an absolute classic show from the 80s. Again, was an absolute stinker. I await to see how good Big Brother is. They're rebooting that.
Fawlty Towers?
Well, exactly. I mean, do you have high hopes for Fawlty Towers as a reboot?
This is going to be unpopular with our viewers, but I didn't like the first series of Fawlty Towers. I thought it was average. Sorry, John Cleese. Sorry to all the TalkTV fans.
Just to be clear, what you're saying is that Fawlty Towers, one of the greatest comedies of all time, you didn't like, but Byker Grove has a place dear in your heart.
Spuggy. Jeff. Wonderful. Well, Rod, I've got to be honest. You haven't convinced me, unfortunately. But you put in a valiant argument. You did put in a valiant argument.
Thank you.
And
I appreciate
you for
that.
your time. Hopefully you'll come back and join us again.
What, like a reboot?
Like a reboot.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
No, I'm dead against that.
Well, let us know what you think. Comment below. Leave all your comments. Tell me what you think. Maybe you disagree and think Fawlty Towers is the best comedy ever made. You'd be wrong to say that. But also like and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time.